Captain Lee Jinho stood on the bridge of the UFS Indomitable, watching the stars drift past through the main screen. The destroyer was 3 days into a routine patrol along the outer edge of human space. Nothing exciting had happened for weeks, and most of the crew seemed bored. Jinho was 45 years old and had been commanding ships for over 15 years. He was not tall, but he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had seen many battles. His dark hair was starting to show gray at the sides, and his eyes were sharp and alert. The crew respected him because he always brought them home. "Safe, Captain," called Ensign Choi Yuna from the communication station. She was young, only 24, and still nervous about making mistakes. "I'm getting something strange on the long-range scanners." Commander Park Sora looked up from her tactical display. She was the first officer and one of the best tactical minds in the fleet. At 32, she had already served on 5 different ships and knew space combat better than most captains. "What kind of strange, Ensign?" Yuna frowned at her screen. "It looks like a distress signal, but it's very weak. The computer is having trouble cleaning it up." Jinho walked over to her station. "Can you boost the signal?" "I'm trying, sir." Yuna's fingers danced over her controls. "There. I think I've got it." The bridge speakers crackled with static, then a desperate voice came through. "This is New Busan Colony. Under attack. Massive alien fleet. Request immediate assistance. They're everywhere. Please help us." The message cut off into static again. The bridge fell silent. New Busan was a farming colony with over 2 million people. It was also 3 light-years away, right at the edge of human territory. "How old is that message?" Jinho asked. Yuna checked her readings. "About 6 hours, sir. It would have taken that long to reach us." Park came over to stand beside the captain. "Sir, New Busan only has basic defenses, a few patrol boats and some orbital platforms. If they're really under attack by an alien fleet..." She didn't need to finish. Everyone knew what that meant. New Busan would be helpless against any serious military force. "Sir," came a voice from the engineering station. Lieutenant Kim Min-ho was 28 and had joined the crew only 6 months ago, but he was already proving to be brilliant with the ship's systems. "I've been monitoring all channels. There's no other Federation ships in this sector. The nearest fleet is 4 days away." Jinho nodded slowly. He had expected as much. The outer colonies were always understaffed and underprotected. It was one of the problems with expanding so fast across the galaxy. "What do we know about alien activity in that area?" he asked Park. Park called up a star map on the main screen. "Intelligence has been tracking increased activity by the Vorak Empire near the border. They've conquered 12 worlds in the last 2 years. All of them had populations smaller than New Busan." Sergeant Major Han Wook spoke up from his position near the rear of the bridge. He was the Marine commander, a grizzled veteran of 30 campaigns. "Sir, if the Vorak are attacking New Busan, they won't be coming with just a few ships. They bring everything they have to make sure there's no resistance." Jinho knew Han was right. The Vorak Empire was known for overwhelming force. They would send dozens of warships against a single colony just to make sure there was no chance of failure. "Sir," Park said quietly, "the Indomitable is just one destroyer. If there really is a full Vorak fleet at New Busan, we'll be outnumbered 50 to 1, Jinho finished for her. "I know." The bridge was quiet again. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Going to New Busan would probably be suicide, but they all also knew that 2 million innocent people were depending on someone to help them. Jinho walked back to his captain's chair and sat down. He thought about his wife back on Earth, and about the promise he had made to always come home. Then he thought about the families on New Busan, probably hiding in their basements while alien ships surrounded their world. "Ensign Choi," he said finally, "send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them about the distress signal and our current position. Include our intended course." "Yes, sir. What course should I include?" Jinho looked around at his crew. Park was watching, him with respect and determination. Minho was already starting to run diagnostics on the ship's weapons. Han was checking his sidearm out of habit. Even young Yuna had stopped looking nervous and was focused on her job. Set course for New Busan. Maximum speed. Park stepped forward. Sir, are you sure? The odds? I know the odds, Commander, but we're not going there to win a fair fight. We're going there because it's the right thing to do. He turned to address the whole bridge crew. I won't lie to you. This mission could get us all killed. If anyone wants to object, speak now. No one said anything. These were Federation officers and crew. They had all sworn an oath to protect human colonies, even at the cost of their own lives. Minho, Jinho called to the engineer. How long until we reach New Busan? At maximum speed, 18 hours, sir. Good. Use that time to run full diagnostics on everything. I want weapons, shields, engines, and life support all running at peak efficiency. If we're going into a fight, I want every advantage we can get. Yes, sir. Should I also prep the emergency systems? Jinho nodded. Everything, Lieutenant, and see if you can squeeze any extra power out of the reactors. We're going to need it. As the crew began their preparations, Jinho stared at the star map showing their destination. He had studied famous battles throughout history, from ancient Earth naval combat to modern space warfare. He knew that sometimes a smaller force could defeat a larger one with the right tactics and a lot of luck. The Indomitable might be just one ship, but it carried the best crew in the fleet. And sometimes that was enough to make the impossible happen. In 18 hours, they would find out if human courage and determination could overcome alien numbers. The stars ahead seemed to shine a little brighter as the destroyer changed course toward New Busan and whatever waited for them there. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Busan system, and immediately every alarm on the bridge started screaming. Contact! Shouted Park from her tactical station. Multiple contacts, counting 47 ships in orbit around New Busan. Jinho gripped his chair as he stared at the main screen. The alien fleet was massive, their ships dark and angular like giant metal insects. Each one was larger than the Indomitable, and there were so many of them that they almost blocked out the planet behind them. Are they Vorak? He asked. Confirmed, sir. I'm reading Vorak energy signatures. Looks like 3 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, and 32 destroyers. Minho whistled softly from his engineering station. Sir, those dreadnoughts are each twice our size. Their main guns could probably destroy us with one shot. Any sign of the colony's defense forces? Jinho asked. Park checked her scanners. I'm reading debris fields where the orbital platforms used to be. No active Federation signals. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. New Busan's defenses had been completely destroyed. The colony was helpless. Sir, Yuna called out, I'm getting a transmission from the Vorak fleet. They're demanding we identify ourselves. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a Vorak command ship. The alien sitting in the captain's chair was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were completely black, and when he smiled, he showed rows of sharp teeth. I am Admiral Kralvin of the Vorak 3rd Fleet, the alien said in perfect English. You are in violation of Vorak space. Identify yourself immediately. Jinho stood up. This is Captain Lee Jinho of the Federation destroyer Indomitable. You are the ones in violation, Admiral. This system belongs to the Human Federation. Kralvin laughed, a sound like metal scraping against metal. Not anymore, human. This world now belongs to the Vorak Empire. You have one chance to leave peacefully. Turn around and go back where you came from. What about the colonists? They will serve the Empire, as all conquered peoples do. Those who resist will be eliminated. Jinho felt anger rising in his chest. 2 million innocent people live on that planet. They have families, children. That is not my concern, Kralvin interrupted. I give you one final warning, human. Leave now, or join your colonists in defeat. I have a better idea, Jinho said calmly. You leave. Take your fleet and go back to Vorak space. These people are under Federation protection. For a moment, Kralvin just stared at him. Then the alien began laughing again, even louder than before. One ship? One tiny destroyer? You think you can threaten the entire 3rd Fleet? I think. You'd be surprised what humans can do when you threaten their people. Kralvin's laughter stopped. Very well. You have chosen death over wisdom. When I destroy your ship, I will make sure the colonists watch. They need to learn what happens. To those who resist the Empire, the transmission cut off. Jinho sat back down and looked around at his crew. Well, that went about as expected. Sir, Park said, they're moving to surround us. Looks like they want to capture the ship intact. How long before they're in weapons? Range? 20 minutes at their current speed. Jinho nodded. Yuna, open a channel to New Busan Colony. Channel open, sir. New Busan Colony. This is Captain Jinho of the Federation ship Indomitable. Please respond. A woman's voice came through the speakers, shaky but determined. This is Dr. Yang Hisu, Colonial Administrator. Captain, thank God you're here, but there are so many of them. I see them, Doctor. What's the status of your population? Most people are in the underground shelters. We built them deep enough to survive orbital bombardment. But if the Vorik land troops, they won't, Jinho said firmly. I promise you that. But Captain, there's only one of you and dozens of them. How can you possibly... Let me worry about that, Doctor. Just keep your people safe underground. This will all be over soon. Jinho closed the channel and turned to his crew. Minho, what's our status? All systems running at peak efficiency, sir. Weapons are charged, shields are up, and the engines are ready for whatever you need. Good. Park, I want a full tactical analysis of that fleet. Find me their weaknesses. Park's fingers flew over her controls. Sir, they're using standard Vorak battle formation. The dreadnoughts are in the center, cruisers forming a protective ring around them, destroyers on the outside. It's designed to prevent exactly what we're thinking of doing, which is getting close enough to do real damage. Those dreadnoughts have shields that can stop anything we can throw at them from long range, but if we could get in close, the cruisers and destroyers would tear us apart before we got within 1,000 kilometers, Han added. Jinho studied the tactical display. The Vorak fleet was indeed arranged to protect the larger ships, but he had been studying military history his whole life, and he knew that every formation had weaknesses. Park, what's behind New Busan? Sir? On the other side of the planet, from the main fleet. Any ships back there? Park checked her scanners. Just 2 destroyers, sir, probably guarding against anyone trying to evacuate. And between us and the planet? The asteroid belt, sir. Lots of big rocks, some of them several kilometers across. Jinho smiled for the first time since arriving in the system. Minho, how? Well, do our engines handle gravitational slingshots? The young engineer grinned. Very well, sir. These new reactors can handle a lot more stress than the old models. Excellent. Park, I want you to plot a course through that asteroid belt. Use the gravity from the larger asteroids to increase our speed. Sir, that's very dangerous. If we miscalculate even slightly, we'll be smashed against a rock, I know. But it's better than being smashed by 47 Vorak ships. Park began, working on the calculations. I think I see what you're planning, sir. Use the asteroids for cover, then slingshot around the planet to hit those 2 destroyers from behind. That's the first part of the plan. What's the second part? Jinho looked at the tactical display again. The Vorak fleet was getting closer, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. They had no idea what humans were capable of when their backs were against the wall. The second part, he said, is where we show Admiral Kralvin that humans don't give up easily. The Indomitable dove into the asteroid field like a small fish swimming between giant rocks. Jinho watched the main screen as asteroids the size of mountains drifted past the ship, some so close that he could see the scars from ancient impacts. Steady, as she goes, Park, he said calmly, even though his heart was racing. Park's hands were firm on the navigation controls. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she threaded the destroyer between 2 massive asteroids with only meters to spare. Coming. Up on the first gravity well, sir. Use it. I want every bit of speed we can get. The ship shuddered as it swung around a particularly large asteroid, using its gravity to increase their velocity. The artificial gravity struggled to compensate, and everyone on the bridge felt their stomachs lurch. Speed increasing, reported Minho from engineering. We're now moving at 120% of normal maximum. Can the engines handle it? For a while, sir. But if we push much harder... I know. Just hold it together a little longer. Behind them, the Vorak fleet was trying to follow, but their larger ships couldn't navigate the asteroid field as easily. Several had to stop and blast their way through, destroying ancient rocks that had been floating in space for millions of years. "Sir?" Una called out. "Admiral Kralvin is trying to contact us." "I bet he is. Ignore him." The Indomitable burst out of the asteroid field on the far side of New Busan, moving faster than any Federation destroyer had ever moved before. Directly ahead were the two Vorak destroyers guarding the planet's rear approach. "Contact," Park shouted. "Two destroyers," just like the scan showed. "They're turning to face us." "Perfect. They weren't expecting us to come from that direction. Target the lead ship and fire everything we have." The Indomitable's main guns opened fire, sending streams of energy across space. The first Vorak destroyer, caught completely by surprise, took the full force of the attack. Its shields collapsed and the ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion. "One down," Park reported with satisfaction. The second destroyer was ready for them now, returning fire with weapons that lit up space like deadly fireworks. The Indomitable's shields absorbed most of the damage, but the ship shook with each hit. "Shield, strength down to 80%, Minho called out. "Beginning evasive maneuvers," Park said, throwing the ship into a series of sharp turns that made everyone grab their chairs. Jinho watched the tactical display as they engaged the second destroyer. The Vorak ship was larger and more heavily armed, but Park's piloting skills and the element of surprise gave them the advantage they needed. "Their shields are down," Park announced. "Finish them." A final barrage from the Indomitable's guns destroyed the second destroyer. Space was now clear behind New Busan, but Jinho knew their real problems were just beginning. "Sir," Una said urgently, "the main fleet is coming around the planet. They'll be here in 10 minutes. How many?" "All of them, sir. 45 ships, and they look very angry." Jinho smiled grimly. "Good. Angry enemies make mistakes. Park, take us back into the asteroid field." "Sir, we can't keep playing hide and seek forever. Eventually, they'll corner us." "I'm not planning to hide, Commander. I'm planning to hunt." The Indomitable dove back into the asteroid field, but this time they weren't running away. Park used the cover of the floating rocks to position them for another surprise attack. "There," Jinho pointed at the tactical display. "3 cruisers trying to flank us through the outer edge of the field. They think they can trap us." "Orders, sir?" "Let's show them how wrong they are." The destroyer accelerated toward the Vorak cruisers, using a large asteroid to hide their approach. At the last second, Park swung the ship around the rock and opened fire at point-blank range. The lead cruiser never saw them coming. The Indomitable's guns tore through its hull, causing secondary explosions that lit up the asteroid field. The second cruiser tried to turn and flee, but Park was ready for that too. "Ramming speed," Jinho ordered. "Sir, you heard me. Ram them." Park gritted her teeth and aimed the Indomitable directly at the fleeing cruiser. At the last second, she fired all weapons and pulled up sharply. The energy beam sliced through the cruiser's engines, leaving it dead in space. "That's 3, Han said with satisfaction. But the third cruiser was ready for them. Its guns fired continuously, hammering the Indomitable's shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems began to fail. "Shield strength down to 40%, Minho reported. "Hull damage on decks 7 and 8. Can you fix it?" "Working on it, sir, but we need time." Time was something they didn't have. More Vorak ships were entering the asteroid field, trying to surround them. Jinho could see on the tactical display that they were being boxed in. "Park, get us out of here. Use the asteroids for cover." "Trying, sir, but they're everywhere." A massive explosion rocked the ship as a Vorak energy beam punched through their weakened shields. The lights on the bridge flickered, and Jinho could smell smoke in the air. "Direct hit to the port engine," Minho called out. "We're losing power." "How bad?" "Bad, sir. We're down to 60% engine power, and I'm reading coolant leaks in 3 sections." Jinho looked around at his crew. They were all doing their jobs professionally, but he could see the strain on their faces. They had destroyed 4 enemy ships, but there were still over 40 left, and the Indomitable was taking serious damage. "Sir," Una said quietly, "Admiral Kralvin is trying to contact us again. Put him through." The main screen showed the Vorak, Admiral's bridge again. Kralvin looked furious, his black eyes burning with rage. "Impressive, human," he snarled. "You have destroyed 4 of my ships, but you are trapped now, and your vessel is damaged. Surrender, and I will allow your crew to live as slaves." "Counteroffer," Jinho said calmly. "You surrender to me, and I'll let you keep 1 ship to take your survivors home." Kralvin's laugh was cold and bitter. "You still think you can win? Look around you, human. You are outnumbered 40-1. I've been outnumbered before. This is your last chance. Surrender now, or I will hunt you through this asteroid field until your ship is nothing but debris." Jinho looked at his crew one more time. Park was already plotting their next move. Minho was rerouting power to the weapons. Yuna was monitoring enemy communications. Han was checking his weapon, ready for whatever came next. "Admiral," Jinho said, turning back to the screen, "you're about to learn why humans don't stay conquered." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Minho, how much power can you give me?" "Everything we have, sir. But if I push the reactors any harder, we risk a core breach." "Do it anyway. Park, I want you to take us straight at their command ship." "Sir, that's suicide." "Maybe, but it's also the last thing they'll expect." Jinho smiled at his crew. "And sometimes the most impossible plan is the one that works." 8 hours had passed since the battle began, and the Indomitable was dying. The bridge was filled with smoke and the smell of burning electronics. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and several sections of the ship had lost life support completely. Half the crew was working in emergency suits, breathing recycled air through masks. "Status report," Jinho called out, his voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. "We've destroyed 12 enemy ships," Park reported, "but we're in bad shape." "Sir?" "Main engines are offline, weapons are down to 30% power, and we have hull breaches on 6 decks. Minho looked up from his engineering station, his face streaked with oil and sweat. "Sir, I've rerouted all available power to the shields, but they won't hold much longer. Maybe another hour if we're lucky." "Life support?" "Failing on decks 4 through 7. I've managed to seal most of the breaches, but we're losing atmosphere faster than the recyclers can replace it." Jinho nodded grimly. They had fought bravely and done more damage than anyone thought possible, but the numbers were finally catching up with them. There were still 35 Vorak ships left, and any one of them could finish off the crippled Indomitable. "Sir," Yuna said softly, "Admiral Kralvin is contacting us again. I suppose he wants to gloat. Put him through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the Vorak commander. His bridge looked pristine compared to the Indomitables, but Jinho could see anger and frustration in the alien's black eyes. "Still alive, human?" Kralvin asked. "You have fought well, I admit. Better than I expected. But this pointless resistance ends now. Your ship is crippled, your crew is dying, and you have accomplished nothing except delaying the inevitable." "Maybe," Jinho said, leaning back in his damaged chair, "but we've given you something to remember us by. 12 ships. Yes, you have cost me 12 ships and many good warriors. For that you have earned a clean death. Surrender now, and I will destroy your vessel quickly. Continue to resist, and I will board your ship and execute your crew one by one." Jinho looked around at his bridge crew. They were exhausted, injured, and probably scared, but none of them showed any sign of giving up. Park was still trying to restore navigation. Minho was working frantically to repair damaged systems. Even young Yuna was monitoring communications and scanning for any advantage they could use. "You know what I've learned about humans, Admiral?" Jinho said, turning back to the screen. "We're really bad at knowing when we're beaten." Kralvin snarled. "Your bravery is admirable but foolish. You cannot win." "Probably not. But we can make sure you remember this day for the rest of your life." The transmission cut off and Jinho turned to his crew. "Minho, that network analysis you've been working on, what did you find?" The young engineer's eyes lit up. "Sir, I've been monitoring their communications during the battle. The Vorak ships all use a shared command network to coordinate their attacks. It's actually very sophisticated." "Any weaknesses?" "Well, sir, They trust their network completely. All their ships are connected to the flagship's main computer. It allows them to coordinate perfectly, but if someone got access to that network, they could send false commands to the entire fleet, make them think enemies were allies or allies were enemies. It would cause complete chaos. Park looked up from her station. Sir, are you thinking what I think you're thinking? That depends. Are you thinking about a suicide run directly at the flagship? That's insane, sir. We'd have to get within a few hundred meters of their command ship to upload anything to their network. Every gun in the fleet would be shooting at us. True, but they've been shooting at us for 8 hours already, and we're still here. Han spoke up from his position. Sir, with respect, our ship is barely holding together. One more direct hit from a dreadnought and we're finished. Then we'd better not get hit. Jinho stood up, swaying slightly as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Minho, how long would you need to upload a virus to their network? If I could get close enough, maybe 2 minutes. But sir, I'd need to physically connect to their system. The wireless network is too well protected. So we'd need to get right alongside their flagship. Yes, sir. Close enough to touch. The bridge fell silent, except for the sound of alarms and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. Everyone understood what the captain was suggesting. It would be a one-way trip. Sir, Park said quietly, there might be another way. If we could rig one of the escape pods with the virus, no good. The pods don't have enough power to break through their defenses. It has to be the main ship. Yuna cleared her throat nervously. Sir, I'm still in contact with Dr. Yang on New Busan. She's asking about the status of the battle. Tell her we're working on it. Jinho sat back down and activated the ship's internal communications. All hands, this is the captain. I need volunteers for a final mission. Anyone who doesn't want to volunteer should report to the escape pods immediately. He waited for responses. None came. All hands acknowledge, came Han's voice over the comm. We're with you, sir. Similar confirmations came from every section of the ship. The crew of the Indomitable had made their choice. Minho, Jinho said, start preparing your virus, make it nasty. Already working on it, sir. This should confuse their computers for hours. Park, plot a course directly to the flagship. Don't worry about avoiding enemy fire. Just get us there as fast as possible. Yes. Sir, but sir, once we start this run, there's no going back. I know. Jinho looked at each member of his bridge crew. I want you all to know it's been an honor serving with you. The honor was ours, sir, Park replied, and the others nodded in agreement. Yuna, send one final message to Dr. Yang. Tell her to keep her people underground for the next few hours. Things are about to get very interesting up here. Message sent, sir. Good. Minho, is the virus ready? Ready, sir. Just need to get close enough to connect. Then let's go show Admiral Kralvin what humans are really capable of. The Indomitable, battered and smoking, began to accelerate toward the center of the Vorak fleet. Every enemy ship immediately turned to intercept them, weapons charging for what they thought would be the final blow. But Captain Lee Jinho had one last surprise in store for them. The Indomitable charged through the Vorak fleet like a comet, trailing fire and debris. Every enemy ship in the fleet was shooting at them now, filling space with deadly energy beams and explosive missiles. But Park flew the crippled destroyer, with skill that bordered on genius, weaving between the attacks with desperate precision. Shields down to 10%, Minho shouted over the noise of alarms and explosions. Hull breach on deck 3, Han reported as he coordinated damage control teams throughout the ship. The main screen showed the Vorak flagship growing larger and larger as they approached. It was a massive vessel, easily 3 times the size of the Indomitable, bristling with weapons and armor. Admiral Kralvin's ship was preparing to fire its main guns, weapons powerful enough to vaporize the human destroyer in a single shot. 2 minutes to contact, Park called out, her hands steady on the controls despite the chaos around them. A direct hit from a Vorak cruiser tore through the ship's hull, and the bridge shook so violently that several crew members were thrown from their stations. Sparks showered down from overhead panels and the smell of burning plastic filled the air. We've lost artificial gravity on decks 5 and 6, Minho reported, and the main reactor is showing critical stress warnings. Will it hold together long enough? Jinho asked. I don't know, sir. Maybe. Another explosion rocked the ship, and Jinho felt something warm running down his face. He wiped his hand across his forehead and saw blood. A piece of shrapnel from an exploding console had caught him just above the eye. Sir, you're injured, Yuna said with concern. I'm fine. How much longer, Park? 1 minute, sir. But they're concentrating all their fire on us now. I don't think we can... Her words were cut off as the flagship's main guns finally fired. The massive energy beams slammed into the Indomitable's failing shields, and the ship's entire structure groaned under the impact. The lights went out for several seconds, and when they came back on, half the bridge stations were dead. Shields are gone, Minho announced. Next hit will punch right through our hull. How close are we? Close enough, Park said grimly. I'm bringing us alongside their command section now. Through the static on the main screen, they could see the hull of the Vorak flagship sliding past them. It was so close that Jinho could make out individual weapons ports and sensor arrays on the enemy ship's surface. Now, Minho, connect to their network. The young engineer's fingers flew over his controls, sending out electronic tendrils to penetrate the Vorak ship's computer systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his screen lit up with alien text and symbols. I'm in, he shouted. Uploading the virus now. How long? 30 seconds. But they didn't have 30 seconds. Admiral Kralvin's ship was rotating to bring more weapons to bear on the Indomitable. Other Vorak vessels were closing in from all sides, ready to finish them off at point-blank range. 20 seconds, Minho called out. The flagship's secondary guns opened fire, and the Indomitable shuddered as energy beams tore through her hull. Atmosphere began venting from a dozen new breaches, and the artificial gravity failed completely. Everyone on the bridge was suddenly floating in zero gravity, held in place only by their safety harnesses. 10 seconds. Captain Jinho felt a sharp pain in his chest and looked down to see a piece of metal protruding from just below his ribs. He tried to speak but only managed to cough up blood. His vision was starting to blur, but he could still see his crew working frantically around him. 5 seconds. The ship's main reactor finally gave up and all the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in eerie red light. But Minho's station was still working, still connected to the enemy network. Upload complete, he announced. The virus is in their system. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Vorak ships continued firing and the Indomitable continued taking damage. Then suddenly, everything changed. The enemy flagship's guns stopped firing and began rotating toward other Vorak ships. On the tactical display, Park could see dozens of ships throughout the fleet suddenly changing course and targeting their own allies. It's working, she said in amazement. They're shooting at each other. The virus Minho had created was simple but effective. It made the Vorak ship's computers think that all other vessels in the fleet were enemy targets. Within minutes, the entire armada was engaged in a massive battle with itself. Vorak dreadnoughts fired their main guns at Vorak cruisers. Destroyers launched missiles at their own command ships. The space around New Busan became filled with explosions as the alien fleet tore itself apart. Sir, Yuna called out. Admiral Kralvin is trying to contact us. Jinho could barely lift his head, but he managed to look at the main screen. The Vorak Admiral's bridge was in chaos, with alarms blaring and crew members running back and forth, trying to regain control of their systems. What have you done? Kralvin demanded, his black eyes wide with disbelief. One, Jinho whispered, though he wasn't sure if anyone could hear him. The transmission cut off as the flagship was hit by fire from 3 of its own escorts. Explosions rippled across its hull, and the massive ship began to list to one side. Sir, Park said softly, we need to get you to medical. Ooh. Jinho tried to shake his head, but the movement sent waves of pain through his body. Status of the colony? Safe, sir. The Vorak fleet is completely destroyed. Most of the ships have been eliminated by their own allies, and the few survivors are fleeing the system. Good. Jinho closed his eyes for a moment, feeling very tired. Send a message to Dr. Yang. Tell her the colony is secure. Sir, please, you need medical attention. But Captain Lee Jinho was already slipping away. He had seen his crew and the colonists safe, and that was enough. As consciousness faded, he could hear Yuna sending the message to New Busan, telling them that the battle was over and they had won. 3 days later, a Federation rescue fleet arrived to find the Indomitable drifting in space, badly damaged but still intact. Most of her crew had survived, though they would never forget their captain who had sacrificed everything to save 2 million innocent people. Commander Park, now promoted to captain, stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Indomitable 6 months later. The ship had been repaired and improved, and a new crew had joined the survivors of the original battle. But in the captain's ready room, there was still a memorial plaque dedicated to Lee Jinho and the other crew members who had died defending New Busan. The battle had become legendary throughout human space. Military academies studied the tactics used by one small destroyer to defeat an entire enemy fleet. The virus technique developed by Lieutenant Minho became standard Federation doctrine for dealing with networked enemy systems. But perhaps most importantly, the Vorak Empire had learned a valuable lesson about humanity. When humans made a promise to protect someone, they kept that promise no matter what the cost. The Empire signed a peace treaty with the Federation 6 months after the battle, and they never again attacked a human colony. On New Busan, the colonists built a monument in the center of their capital city. It was a simple stone structure with the names of every crew member who had served on the Indomitable during the battle. At the top, in letters that could be seen from orbit, were the words, "They came when no one else could. They stayed when no one else would. They won when no one else believed." And in the Federation records, the battle was officially designated as the Miracle of New Busan, though most people simply called it by another name. The day one human warship faced an entire alien fleet and emerged victorious. The legacy of Captain Lee Jinho and his crew would inspire generations of Federation officers who came after them. And whenever humans faced impossible odds, they would remember the Indomitable and know that sometimes courage and determination could overcome any enemy, no matter how powerful they seemed. The stars above New Busan continued to shine, no longer blocked by enemy ships, and the colonists went about their lives knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, there were people willing to risk everything to keep them safe.